People were energised, interested in politics. This was the moment where we had the power to shape our future. I was not a campaigner for Indy. I wasn't involved in politics in any way at the time. I was working in Orkney on a wave energy machine. I travelled back to my home in Edinburgh to cast my vote for yes. And the next morning, when the announcement was made that the no vote had won, I had a terrible sinking feeling in my stomach. That feeling of an opportunity lost, a moment for a better future missed. Over the next 2 weeks, that feeling galvanised in me to the point where I sat at my computer and Googled Green Party and found the Scottish Greens and paid my £3 to join. The really interesting thing was that I wasn't the only person who did so. The membership of the Scottish Greens, I think, quadrupled in that week. Thousands of people joined up, inspired by the dream of a different future, the dream of an independent Scotland. The unionist parties in this chamber keep hoping that the question of independence will just go away. Instead, support for independence is strong. Before the referendum was called, I understand support was at about 27%. The campaign for Indy drove that support up to 45% on voting day, a huge achievement, in which Green Yes played a significant part. And still, it kept growing. Today, support sits at around 50%. We know young people overwhelmingly support an independent Scotland, so this looks continued to grow. The independence campaign inspired us because it gave us the chance to imagine something better, to engage with the big questions around how we build a society based on fairness, equality, and respect, how we redistribute wealth so that everyone has enough to live a dignified life, and how we play our role on the global stage to foster peace and good global citizenship.
Presiding Officer, I'm genuinely sad that I've not been able to be in Parliament today due to a personal appointment. It feels like I've missed a very special atmosphere all afternoon, to be honest, and I wish that I'd been there. And I know that some people have been discussing the atmosphere during 2014, during that referendum campaign. I've no doubt that there was some bad behaviour on both sides. I saw bad behaviour on both sides, but it was as nothing to the political violence that we've seen from British nationalism obsessions like Brexit, and as we've seen this year from the British nationalist obsession with immigration as well. We should all condemn political violence, but it is simply absurd to suggest that the 2014 independence referendum was some low point in terms of our politics. I think it is important, though, to acknowledge the pain that some of us do still feel. And for me, as I commented on social media earlier today, one of the most painful aspects of this is remembering having been dismissed, even laughed at and ridiculed for saying that if we voted no to independence, we would be endangering our place in Europe, that the UK was threatening to take us out of the European Union against our will. To stand there in a national televised debate, to express this concern and to be dismissed and the argument treated with contempt, when in fact what we predicted is exactly what came to pass. Scotland voted to remain in the European Union and we were dragged out against our will. And the loss of freedom of movement, a freedom exercised by so many Brexiteers, and they've now taken that freedom away from young people. I do take heart, though, in the fact that young people in Scotland do not seem resigned to this being their fate. They do feel optimism and passion for a better Scotland, and I believe that in my lifetime they will make it happen.
My party and others who believe in independence have a job of convincing others first. 10 years on, the biggest movement of the dial has been in response to Brexit. And what people saw happen there, what outraged them, that votes in other countries took Scotland out of the EU against our will when every single local authority here voted to remain, was very public. It got a lot of media attention, but it happens every day. In tiny ways and huge ways, from UK ministers taking years to sign a simple order on something that it's already agreed to devolve, to bringing in an Internal Market Act which is used to limit the ambitions of this Parliament. What the Tories did to Scotland in 2016 is a regular occurrence. But I know that resenting injustice is not good enough on its own to win over hearts and minds. We also have to inspire. I believe that the SNP is going to be the party that delivers independence, but we will not convince others to back us if we are arguing for independence for the sake of it. They have to, like over 1 million people in 2014 were, be motivated by hope, a belief that making our own decisions and our own mistakes will make a positive difference to ordinary lives. We have to give those who were 6 at the time of the last referendum, the next generation, a reason to jump on a bus wearing a political badge and dare to imagine a better country. A reason to show up and vote every time because their vote and who represents them does matter. It doesn't always matter right now, but I believe I'll see a Scotland when it does, if we prove as a party and as a parliament that we, Scotland, can do better with independence.
Now, if you contrast that with what we then saw a couple of years after that with the European Union referendum to decide our future within the European Union, which was tarnished by the lies of the Leave campaign, which was built on ignorance. And if I have one personal regret in politics, it's the fact that I probably didn't spend anything like as much time as I would have liked to have, knocking on doors, talking to people about the benefits of the European Union and about our role within that European family of nations. Because of the timing, because it was so close after the Holyrood elections, I didn't spend that time. And I really regret that, because I wanted, I suppose, now to be able to take that spirit of that referendum into that question about whether we should remain within the European Union or not. But what's absolutely clear is that Brexit has been an utter disaster, an utter disaster. We live in a world that is more interdependent than ever. We live in a world where states need to show solidarity with each other, whether it's about tackling the climate crisis, delivering our global security, or our shared prosperity. But it is not incompatible with independence. And in fact, membership of the European Union requires independence. It requires sovereign states to join, to work together, and to flourish. And if you have any doubt about that, go to Dublin, go to Ireland, see a flourishing nation, an independent nation within the European Union, which is doing just that. So when I see poll results come out this week that shows that 56% of Scots want to see an independent Scotland within the European Union, that fills my heart with hope for the future.
And since 2014, there has been much change and Scotland has faced its challenges, but there is much to be proud of, as I have highlighted. And when it comes to Scotland's future, there is much more work to be done if we are to create the modern, the diverse, the dynamic Scotland we all want to see. And as the First Minister made clear in this afternoon's debate, we could make a greater impact with all the levers of powers of an independent nation. And as we have seen since 2014, decisions about Scotland's future are best determined by people who live here in Scotland.